then I wouldn't mind doing
Okay, yay. All right, hi everyone, I'm Anna. I founded Food Tech Meetup Group as actually the latest new series I actually do events across a lot of other frontier technology, including augmented reality, computer vision, artificial intelligence, blockchain, and Food Tech is my latest addition due to some of my product releases. And so first, I want to thank UC Berkeley Extension for being our awesome venue partner. They're the venue partner for all my events, and they're amazing. All right, so if you haven't been to one of our events, we have a slightly different format than your typical panel. What I love to do is first, we have a fireside chat. So today we have 2 speakers, and so what I'll do is we'll get to know each speaker one by one about their backgrounds and their personal stories of how they got to where they are today, and then we bring everyone up for a panel that is more thematic. It's more about the industry, just about trends, things like that, and then we'll open up the floor for questions. So. Okay, get seated here. So first we're gonna have Alex from IndieBio. Let's give him a round of applause. So Alex is a program director and partner at IndieBio, where they fund scientific entrepreneurs working to solve global problems with biology. Companies span the future of food and ag, therapeutics and healthcare, consumer bio, computational bio, regenerative medicine, neurotech, and more. So
lots of stuff.
Yeah, lots of stuff. All right, Alex. So let's start with your background. From the very beginning, where did you grow up? What was your family like? What were your interests? And more specifically, what were maybe some of your earliest influences, if you had any, towards what you would end up doing today?
Okay. Yeah. Most panels are never ask for background.
Yeah.
So I guess my family immigrated to the U.S. when I was really young. So I actually grew up in Iowa, of all places, randomly, just because we had a distant cousin who sponsored us to come there.
And where did you come from?
Minsk, Belarus,
Okay.
which is north of Ukraine, west of Russia. No one knows where it is typically.
Does anyone in the audience know? Okay, thank you.
Right,
No, so you were wrong.
Okay, 2, wow, great.
Yeah.
That's pretty good. So, yeah, I grew up in Iowa, not exactly a hotbed of startups or entrepreneurship or food tech. Well, maybe different food tech in
Probably like farms or something.
Yeah, farm tech.
Yeah.
And I would say just the one thing that would be probably informed a lot of interests that kind of got me to do startups in this whole world in general was randomly in the middle of high school, I learned how to play poker and took a liking to playing poker a lot and got pretty good, and it was during a big boom in poker in kind of pop culture and society. So ended up kind of playing a lot of high stakes online and in person once I turned 21, and that kind of gave me an appetite for risk and I would say a lot of fast decision making and trying essentially a lot of the things that made me really bad at working in big organizations probably had a lot to do with poker.
So can you tell us about your most exciting poker moment? When it was very high risk and you just had a lot to lose and to gain?
I don't know if I have a distinct memory.
Maybe because you were young, I guess.
Yeah, I just blacked it all out.
Okay.
I did not drink while I played poker. Never mind.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, it was playing poker. It was you play tons and tons of hands. So nothing no one moment jumped out, to be honest with you.
Okay. So yeah, and then let's continue with, college. You chose a very specific major. So can you tell us your major and then what you ended up doing afterwards? Because that ended up affecting what you do today. So.
Yeah, so I went to grad school for clinical pharmacy, which is kind of related to seemingly sometimes random for people when they think about IndieBio. So that's more of like working with patients as opposed to doing lab work, and though some people do drug discovery from that. I think a lot of my motivations came from the fact that I got really into preventive medicine, nutrition, wellness, and things like that, which then I would say looking at kind of what are the things that move the needle in health outcomes in the US and developed world is typically nutrition and behavior change. In the developing world, it's access to medicine and a lot of the basic things we take for granted here. So those are the two paths I was looking at. So after grad school, after exploring a bunch of stuff, spent some time at a global health nonprofit called PATH, which is part of the kind of a pet project of the Melinda Gates Foundation. Not to demean it by saying pet project, but working on like vaccines, new drugs, devices, things like that for I think mostly Africa and Southeast Asia. After that, I spent some time at a startup working in more behavior change and also simultaneously exploring some like the social impact world, both here and a little bit further abroad.
Yeah, I actually saw that you did a ton of social impact things.
Yeah, so through like some friends and kind of serendipity, got connected to like the effective altruist community and explored that for a while. Did some things with SoCap, which is nearby, and a few other small projects. It was interesting. I would say it kind of like changed my perspective on a lot. It also made me think that I didn't see like a lot of levers of change in those places. Ultimately, a lot of things that I would say learned in retrospect after like leaving there and being at IndieBio is like a lot of these things are kind of, for better or worse, market incentives. So things that rely on a lot of goodwill and consumer behavior change and government behavior change are really difficult to implement. So I think you just have to make something that's better for people and that is equal at cost or just performs much better, which is why I think you need technology drivers for a lot of this stuff. I do think we need different market dynamics and government policy and incentives, which would maybe help balance that out a little bit, but I just don't see it in the world yet. So I think a lot of those communities, while they mean really well and like think about things well in the big picture, I haven't seen move the needle in a very big way.
Okay, yeah, so basically your reason for being in biotech is because you wanted to move the needle.
Yeah.
You wanted to do something that would move the needle in the world, and you saw tech as being the thing that would be the most effective for that.
Yeah, and like traditional tech is something that like no programming skills at all in the slightest, and have like really no desire going down that route either. So thinking of like both in healthcare and food systems, which are I think two connected and huge issues in the world. Those are two really interesting areas to explore, and two things that we do. Two things we do a lot of at IndieBio, alongside a few other things that I've kind of expanded into. So I thought they were probably two of the biggest levers for change across almost any geography, and moving to climate change more and more, food has expanded in that direction.
Actually, can you tell us about IndieBio?
Oh yeah, so IndieBio is a biotech accelerator that's part of SOSV, which is a venture fund that does accelerators in different industries like hardware, blockchain, and a few others. We're the life science portion of that. We fund mostly PhD, like postdoc scientists who have discoveries, inventions from academia that they want to kind of make that leap from being an academic project into a startup, which is often kind of hard to jump that gap. So we take companies from all over the world, and then they come to San Francisco. We have a lab, a co-working space, all of that, and we then have a 4-month program focused on product development and science, business development, leadership and like management skills, and then fundraising. And then at the end, they have a demo day, like 800 people, investors, all that, and then they graduate and keep building the company.
Yeah, and you have a cohort right now, right?
Yes, we have 11 companies. Ricky, right here, is actually one of the
Hi,
founders.
Ricky!
So yeah, 11 companies. We're a little under halfway through, and it's split. Out of the 11, probably 7 are like in food and sustainability, industrial biology. 4 are pretty squarely in healthcare through different modalities.
Okay.
We have 116 companies in the last 4.5 years.
And when is the next cohort? So for people in the audience that may be interested to join the next cohort, when is that? What should they keep in mind?
We kind of talk to people all year round. I think we have we also then have a more intense interview period. We'll probably start late April. So demo day for this group will be early February. Then like 2 months in between, then we kick off again.
Okay. All right. Okay. So, and lastly, can you tell us more about your mentorship responsibilities? We saw that you're a mentor with Tara, and then also, are you still active with the Freeman School at Tufts?
Yeah, more so Tufts. So Terra is a kind of a corporate, it's a different type of accelerator. There's a bunch of these that have popped up where big companies who want innovation in a certain area will kind of pay this accelerator to find companies, and then it's free for the companies. And the goal is for the startups, and it's free for them, then they match them with a large company that wants innovation in a certain area.
Yeah, and can you tell us about Terra, because it is related to.
So that's Terra, and they kind of reached out because a bunch of our companies kind of fit the areas we're looking for, so they want to meet some of our founders, and then occasionally if they have a company in the cohort, they might want like myself to come and chat with them about, if it's more biotech, like come and chat with them about kind of their either business milestones or technical plan or something like that. And then Friedman is.
So how are they different?
IndieBio and. We're investing in companies and kind of just focus on the company. We don't have corporate sponsors or anything like that. Whereas Terra is more focused on corporate sponsorship and then helping match them with startups. So they're just essentially helping, say, Nestle solve one problem by finding one startup that is trying to do that. Does that make sense? Ish, yeah, giving some nods.
Okay, yeah.
Oh, and then
Tufts.
Yeah, so Tufts is actually the only university apparently that has a graduate school dedicated to nutrition. So it's like nutrition policy, research. They're trying to do entrepreneurship and things like that. Their dean is like a mentor of ours. He's trying to establish a National Institute for Nutrition, which is crazy. There's no independent government body that funds and does nutrition research. So it's all under the USDA or funded by industry, which is why most of it's pretty bad. So they're trying to get, I think, $5 billion a year allocated to nutrition research. And then for Tufts itself, they pinged myself and Arvind, our managing director, about helping them as they think through helping their students be more entrepreneurial and do startups with kind of nutrition backbone. Okay. And then hopefully they can also plug in and work with some of our founders. So maybe their students will be interns or join companies of ours.
Okay, so they really just provide they connect students at Tufts with startups?
They want to connect them to ours, and then they want us to help them think about how do you mentor students to start their own companies who are Tufts students as well.
Okay,
yeah.
Undergrad, or
graduate.
also graduate?
Mostly PhDs
mostly grad.
and
okay,
yeah.
Okay, got it. Okay, awesome.
Cool.
Yeah, thanks, Alex. I think we will
hand it over.
Yeah, hand it over
right.
to Janine. All right, now I'm gonna call you. Hi.
Hi, everybody.
All right, Yaniv. Yeah, let's do the same thing. Let's start with your background. And you, I think, one thing that stands out definitely is that you wear multiple hats. Like right now, I don't want to spill the beans too much, but basically he does academia while he is an investor. And is there something that in your early life, your background, something that led you to this?
Yeah, so just for a little bit of background, so I'm French and Israeli, so you may or may not understand my accent, but you'll get used to it in the next few minutes. So I grew up in Israel, then moved to France at the age of 12. I wasn't really sure what I wanted to do, but I think that something that was all common, when I'm thinking about my past, is that I was always a little bit of a contrarian. I would do something that would be, my parents were journalists. I would get into science, and then I was in an engineering school, but then I decided to switch my major to biology at the last moment. But then I also decided to do plant biology, which nobody else was doing. And then I ended up wanting to do a PhD, but I came to the US to do it, which is very uncommon for French people in biology. They generally stay in France. It's kind of the French mentality, and so now I'm here, and yeah, so my research is in plant biology. I'm at Stanford. I'm actually wrapping up my PhD right now, and the idea is really to transition to venture capital. I joined AgFunder about, I want to say 8-9 months ago already, and maybe I'm talking too much about like
No.
questions that you're going to ask next, but
Yeah, but you're taking us there, so that's fine.
okay. So yeah, so yeah, I'll stop here and let you ask.
Okay, well, you did kind of go through, let's see, you said you chose plants because, yeah, not a whole lot of people did back then. But what was it about plants that was interesting to you that you would, devote your PhD to?
Yeah, so I think there are a lot of interesting things in plant biology in general. First of all, just to do a little bit of an ad for plant biology, most of the main discoveries that you hear about in biology, like the big ones that are really in the textbook, they start in biology. So if you think about genetics, it's Mendelian genetics. Viruses were discovered in plants. So a lot of the very major discoveries were in plants. So people used to use plants as a tool more so than they do now. And then, to be honest, I didn't really want to work on animal organisms. I was a little, personal, so didn't really want to do that. And plants look like really interesting organisms. And as I mentioned, nobody was really doing it, so that was something that I was naturally attracted to.
So what was your thinking? So you had decided plants, but then take us through what you decided next within plants.
Right.
To work on.
Right. So I was always really fascinated with genetics. I think that what I find really interesting is that the way I think about it is that there's this really natural world out there and all these like little secrets, especially happening when you look at a plant and then you zoom in, and then all the way to the genetics. And I thought this idea was really fascinating. And what I particularly like and about research in general is the fact that you get to uncover a few secrets and you're the first one to really know about them. And then the idea is really how do you take them and translate them into something that could be really important in agriculture. So I'm working right now on seed germination and how seeds really cope with water deprivation, how do they cope with drought, stress conditions like salt. And I have another project where I really work on how plants sense the environment at the stress conditions at a very molecular level.
Do you focus on specific types of plants?
So I use the plant that's called Arabidopsis thaliana. So that's basically it's the model organism for plant biology. So the same way that people who were working on diseases, they would use a mouse model, we use Arabidopsis. So it's,
and what is that for us commoners? Is there not a more common name for this plant?
I think some people call it like a field cress or something like this, but like you probably never seen it. Or yeah, it's not like a plant that you can eat. It's not a plant that you can do much about. I think some people can put it in their I've heard of people putting that in their soups, but I've never tasted it.
What did you call it? What did you say was the common?
I think it's like field cress or something like. I should know it better. But,
Does anyone in the audience actually know about this? Or has anyone?
Oh, interesting.
Can you tell us why you know this, or can you tell us more about it?
Because I'm a professor of plant sciences from UC Davis.
Okay.
And I work on seed germination and how water stress affecting seed germination.
Then we should
All
talk
right.
after that.
Yes. And is that the common name for it?
Yeah, Arabidopsis, that's what we know.
Okay,
I don't know the common name, it's the Arabidopsis albus.
Okay, and it's not commercially available for from a Whole Foods or anything like that?
No, it's not food.
Okay, because it's just not eaten or?
It's a kind of weed actually.
Okay. Okay, cool.
Yeah, and it doesn't smell nice, and it doesn't necessarily. I haven't tasted. Maybe I should.
Yeah,
Because
maybe you
as a
should
way to
taste
celebrate
it.
the
More
end of my
cred,
PhD,
more
yeah.
street cred there. But okay, and then so you decided to focus on genes, but especially in reaction to basically environmental stresses like lack of water. Can you tie that into, because that can help us, maybe come up with some plant products out there that are able to cope with, a changing world, right?
Mhm.
Where we have less water. I've read recently, like legumes, I was actually amazed by their ability to deal with that exact condition of having very little water. So how do they compare to that?
Yeah, so I think there are two aspects, first of all, to my research is that yes, you can theoretically use the knowledge to really make those plants and those seeds more resistant to those drought conditions. But at the same time, a lot of people in agriculture use what's called priming. It's basically you start by hydrating the seeds first, and then you dehydrate them. And so you make them basically, as the name says, like primed for germination. So it's an idea of, in agriculture, you want those seeds to germinate in a synchronous way. You don't want one to germinate this day and another one this day. So this is one application. Another application is, if you think about, there's like one rainy day, the seed would not necessarily want to germinate on that specific day unless it's followed by more rainy days, right? If it's just one rainy day during the summer. So this is the kind of stuff. But then when it compares to legumes, I don't know enough about it. So I try to avoid the question.
Okay. And then maybe you can tell us more about your role as an investor. I do want to go into the investing part like during the panel, but how did this happen? How did you end up wearing a second hat as a grad student?
Yeah, so I was really thinking for a long time that I was going to get into academia and become a professor, but I decided against it.
And is that being contrarian again?
Yeah.
Or just you wanted to make a living? I don't know.
A little bit of everything. I think
it's
a very exhausting process, honestly, a PhD. It's like takes a toll on you. And then, I was also thinking about more agricultural applications, how you can apply the knowledge into the business world, into real world. And I realized that basically business was like the right vehicle to do that. And what's really, I think, is a problem in plant biology is that we don't have enough people who really start their own startups or really trying to apply the knowledge from plant biology. So you'll hear more often people, and at Stanford, people from the med school who are starting their own startups based on their research. But it's not as common in plant biology. Davis, I think, is a little bit of an exception. So from there, I was getting really interested in the entrepreneurial world, business. I was thinking about either starting my own startup or getting into consulting, so management consulting, or venture capital. And then AgFunder was looking for somebody who would have a little bit of a business background, but mostly a biology background. Yeah. So my business background mostly involved in just participating in a bunch of like consulting clubs, biotech clubs, taking classes at the business school, doing a program at the business school, going through an accelerator program at Stanford. And so that was the part that they were interested in, but they also needed somebody who can really understand the biology behind the biotech that they wanted to invest in.
Okay, so what has that been like?
It's been awesome, really. It's so far. I don't know if it's just because I'm still in the kind of honeymoon phase of being, an investor. Just have been there as like 8-9 months, but it's really, I think, really fits my personality. Of the thing with a PhD is that you work on the same project and for like 5 years, right? And there's 95% is going to be failed experiments, and it's frustrating and it's slow. And then venture capital has been more like fast, right? You talk to a bunch of startups all the time, like turnaround business, very, very fast compared to PhD. So I really like this pace.
Okay, so so basically now at this point you are pretty set on the investing portion. And so when you graduate next year, that's your plan?
Yeah, in the next few months, hopefully. But that's the plan.
Okay. Okay. All right, so let's actually move to the panel now. Let's bring Alex up. Thank you. All right, so let's cover more about actual investing in food tech. In your different, with AgFunder and then with IndieBio, what is your investing thesis for investing in food tech?
Mm-hmm. Shall I start?
Oh yeah, sorry, you guys are sharing a mic
Yeah.
over there, so
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah,
by
so
default, I guess you're going first.
yeah, so AgFunder is investing in anything that is ag tech or food tech. So anything across the value chain. So from really the very beginning, which is like the seeds, inputs in agriculture, all the way to the moment it's in your stomach, which would be more of the food tech. So the thesis was, so AgFunder, right now with food tech and even ag tech, it's a very, very hot topic, but especially food tech right now, obviously we're here. But AgFunder.
Actually, sorry, can you tell us more about AgFunder? I think maybe we didn't. Maybe how AgFunder is different from other firms.
Yeah.
Like that.
So the two founding partners, Michael Dean and Rob Leclerc, they had an agriculture business in Africa, and then it went well until there was a coup in Mali, and then things kind of collapsed. But they always wanted to stay in agriculture, and really they really saw the potential of agriculture and food, and so they started a platform that wasn't really venture capital at first, but it was more of an investment online platform that was more crowdfunding, but it also had a news media outlet. So those who are in the ag tech, food tech space, you may have heard of AgFunder News. So it's basically a news outlet that covers everything that is happening in the startup world when it comes to food and agriculture. And so from there in 2017, it became a venture capital firm. So the way they tell the story is that it's kind of like a news media outlet with venture capital as its business model. So venture capital is venture capital is kind of a reputation. It's all about reputation. It's about information. And so pairing it with media has been able to really make our name recognized around the world. People really know in the space at least what AgFunder, who we are, and so it also helps with information, understanding what's happening out there. That was.
So is there a crowdsourcing?
No, not anymore.
So
it's
zero,
now an actual.
zero crowdsourcing.
Yeah.
It's actually VC. Like they have an LP.
Yes, we have
Okay.
LPs, and we had like fund number 1 started in 2017, and now fund number 3 was raised recently, and now we're moving to a fund that's going to be dedicated actually to alternative protein.
Nice.
Yeah. I forgot the question. Did they cover?
What was the question?
What was the question?
I don't.
I think it was
Oh no!
approach-
Wait,
approach to-
what your investing thesis? Investing thesis. Yeah.
Yeah.
And the most
Yeah.
recent fund is alternative protein. Okay.
Yes, so the thesis is that really food and agriculture is the next big thing that is about to get disrupted, if not only disrupted. So that was the thesis and how they started. So at the time, really, people were not really looking at food and agriculture, and we really saw this. They all saw this opportunity. For example, agriculture is, McKinsey came out with a study that is often cited in ag tech, which is that agriculture is the least digitalized industry. So really there was like a lot that could be disrupted, and we're seeing it now.
Yeah. And I would love to hear examples later.
Sure.
From
So for us, it's evolved over the 4.5 years, but I think just the idea, we take a portfolio approach to solving big problems, and in food systems, that can be everything, I think, from seed to when it's in you, like inside of our belly. I think it started off mostly in alternate proteins, so investing in a number of the very early companies making animal proteins without the animal. It's like Clara Foods making egg whites, the protein from egg white using yeast to express it. The same way you in a brewery have yeast creating beer. Then Memphis Meats growing animal protein like beef, chicken, and duck without the animal. A few plant-based food companies. So we started off putting bets early in that space. And then that took off as a lot of investors started getting interested, and that peaked with, now we have like dozens of companies, and we actually invest a little bit less there because we see it being pretty saturated in a lot of kind of redundant technology. So we're going into more kind of unique spaces. So in ag tech, it could be microbial, like biopesticides, bee pollination. We have a company right now growing rice in the ocean using genetic modification. There's a lot of specialty ingredients, so making really high value food colorants, making HMOs that are prebiotic or probiotic, people taking carbon dioxide out of the air to make protein. So really, almost anything that has a life science kind of underpinning to it that we think will have a really big change in how to produce protein, or not even just protein, any food product, either in more difficult and more stressed environments, more energy efficiently, more humanely, so any of the above.
And so what stage of companies do you guys invest in?
So I'll start. So for us, ours are pretty early. A lot of them are transitioning out of academia, but not always. A number of them have come in with, like Clara Foods, our first company doing that, had a technical plan pretty much on a piece of paper in science that made us think there wasn't basic biology to be discovered, but more engineering work to be done. So they came in with a plan of how to express protein using yeast, and they did it, raised money, and then continued to scale. Other companies have come in who have raised upwards of $2 million already before they enter the accelerator. So the common thread is like we have the same investment and support for all the teams. It's kind of customized, but they're all quite early stage, usually still in that early kind of prototype to pilot scale, and also doing product development at the same time.
So on average, also, how long would you say that they've been working on their subject, or their what becomes their companies?
The subject matter, so 5 to 10 years oftentimes if these are PhDs and people working on it in academia. It's like Memphis Meats came out of Uma Valetti was a cardiologist in Minnesota running a lab doing stem cell work for cardiac tissue for the heart. Other people were just doing things in synthetic biology, and they're kind of less discovery and more engineering a certain organism or pathway in academia, and they found or they created a valuable byproduct. Occasionally we've had people more from industry who come back with an idea and how to create IP around that, so that'd be a little bit faster. But if it's from academia, probably 5 years minimum.
Yeah, so we also invest early, perhaps not as early, but we do invest in pre-seed all the way to Series B. With the new fund, we would consider opportunities that are a little bit later on. But that being said, we do love IndieBio because it's a great way for us to find up-and-coming startups. This is how I met this guy. So yeah, so pre-seed to Series B, and as AgFunder expands and becomes bigger, we would love to look at later stage companies as well.
Oh, and actually, I feel like Alex gave examples of companies that have gone through their program. Can you give us some of your companies, or tell us about them?
Yeah, so we, as I mentioned, we invest also in agtech. So on the food tech side, so we invested a lot in agtech. So that was really a lot about software, so farm management, farm-to-farm network, even robotics, drones. That was on the farm side, and then on the food, we've invested in on the food side, we've invested in a plant-based company that's producing dairy. I cannot talk too much about it.